And so from that first slide, just backing up a little bit, the idea is that in youth soccer there are 4 adult groups that really support the youth game. Those first and foremost are the coaches. The administrators have a big part. Obviously the parents of the kids are intimately involved, and then referees actually have a piece in the whole experience and even in the development of the players to a degree. We speak regularly about the impact that coaches have on youth soccer players, and we do a lot in terms of the education of those coaches through the NSCAA, through USU Soccer, the United States Soccer Federation, etc. And those organizations also do some work towards parent education. But one of the pieces that we don't talk about with administrators quite enough is their role in player development. We do a lot of other things in regards to the professional development and education of administrators in managing youth sport, but sometimes overlook the fact that they actually have a role to play in the development of the players. So when I talk to administrators about this topic, I try to use the analogy of the lines in the team, that in a team you have the goalkeeper line, defenders, midfielders, forwards, if we want to break it into those 4. And as coaches, we know that, well, we're not going to have a very effective team if my goalkeeper's on one game plan, my midfielders are on another game plan, my defenders are on yet another, and so on. That what we in fact want are those lines in the team to all be connected together. And I'm looking at those lines in the soccer team being similar to those 4 adult groups that support youth soccer. So we want to talk about how do we get the coaches and administrators together more often to address the environment that surrounds youth soccer. And one of the things that I'm certainly an advocate of is more meetings at the club level, at the state association level, at the national level, at a league level, of coaches and administrators meeting together, particularly when the topic of discussion is going to be something that impacts the player's environment. I know the majority of the coaches will be quite happy to let the administrators have their own meeting when we're deciding what insurance plan to buy and those sort of things. But when the discussion gets into things, as an example, kickoff times at tournaments, or the amount of rest time between matches for a team at a tournament, then the coaches need to be involved with the administrators. And I put it back onto coaches' shoulders sometimes too, that not enough coaches take the time and make the effort to show up at some of the scheduled meetings that are going on at their clubs or a state association and so forth. If more coaches did that, then even if you don't have a vote, you have an opportunity to be heard either publicly or with the people that do have a vote privately, and try to have some of the decision making that goes on that impacts the players make a little bit more sense. We want to look at some of the programming, some of the things that set the right tone, and by having the coaches meet with the administrators being brought up to speed, if you will, on some of the aspects of player development, then some of the policy making, some of the decision making begins to make more sense for youth soccer. As an example, talking to them about, well, what are the characteristics of an age group? Well, if they begin to understand what the characteristics of 8-year-old children compared to 18-year-old young adults, it makes more sense in terms of some of the things that we want to do to set the right environment for them to have those age groups, to have their training sessions, to have their matches, as to what's a season for them, what's the length of a season, these sort of things. This is the direction that we want to go in, involving the administrators in their role of player development. We're looking at and discussing at the state or at the club level to begin with, and then at the state association level, and those 2 levels are the primary ones, because those are the ones that have the most direct contact with players, with parents, with coaches, and it could include a league. if a league is a standalone entity, that a club, a league, a state association, but certainly to national organizations being involved with the administrators in terms of where most of the coaches come from in youth soccer. Initially, the majority of them come out of the parent ranks. Administrators need to take a bigger role at the club level, in particular with the help of their league, with the help of the state association, for guiding those parents as they make the move, as you see here in the little display, from parent spectator to parent coach. And suddenly, as you see in the cartoon, the spectator who thought he or she knew it all when they were the parents sitting on the side, now all of a sudden they're on the team bench, and they find themselves not quite sure what to do or say in regards to the coaching. And we still, even today, have too many instances where club administrators will corral a parent into becoming the coach of the little under sevens, and the parent finally says yes, but then the club doesn't give that parent coach, that new parent coach, here's your starter kit, here's some basic information, here's where you go to find information. So we need more conscious guidance from club administrators with their new coaches to aim them in the right direction, to get them started on their coaching in terms of coaching information, session plans, etc. Because heaven forbid the poor novice coach goes on the internet and Google soccer coaching and gets 1.5 million hits. And really from out of that, how do they determine what's useful and what's not? So this is one of the first steps that we want club administrators and then state administrators to be more directly involved with and more conscious of on a consistent basis. And here you see, just as an example, some of the different areas where policies that are made could be impacting player performance. One obviously is that happens all the time is spectator conduct. To their credit, we have a lot more clubs across the nation making a conscious effort to address this part, to basically train the adults, train the spectators, have the kids stand in front of the spectators at the beginning of a match and read out creeds that they want the spectators to follow as they watch their match, the kids' match. That's one example. One that I know that the NSCAA and the Club Standards Project talks about a good bit is ability-based grouping in addition to age groups for the various organization of the teams and of the kids. And what's the difference? How do we do that? What makes the most sense in terms of player development? And this comes back to, if you will, the administrators understanding a little bit more about player development and what's the right environment for player development. So as an example, this past weekend I was in Arizona and I met with directors of coaching from quite a few of the clubs from around that state, and we were talking about how did they put in for Zone 1 being 12 years old and younger, of the player development pyramid from U.S. Soccer. How did they put into Zone 1 an academy setup beginning probably at under 10? And that how do we begin to educate the administrators, educate the parents as to why is that age-appropriate competition? Why is small-sided games a part of that? Why is that now more ability-based grouping rather than chronological age grouping? Why is it that we're not having set teams, that we're having player pools in which the players can move from Pool A to Pool B to Pool C, as an example, and how that all makes sense in terms of player development. We're at a stage in youth soccer in the United States where we need to move past the management that we're doing of the current situation, which is what's occurring in most cases. Coaches and administrators are just managing the current environment, the current status of the game. And if we're going to raise the status of our game, we need to take on the extra work that might come as we make some of the shifts as you see as possible policies on this particular page. We talked a little bit about the tournament scheduling as another one of those examples a little while ago, and these are where the technical leaders need to be involved with the administrators to help guide some of those policies, and where administrators need to understand not so much the nuances of the game itself, but what's the right environment for the players, what are age-appropriate stages as we move the kids from Zone 1 into Zone 2, which is under 13 through under 17, and then into Zone 3, which is 18 years old and older, into adult soccer. So one of the aspects that we need the administrators to understand, and if they do, they can help the coaches get the message across to the parents, since the parents do influence youth soccer so strongly. And this is to begin to understand that player development, as you see here, is a natural process. It's not an assembly line process. We can't say for sure that if we do ABC at stage 1, that at stage 2, the player will be ready for the next piece and on to stage 3. It's not that clean cut. It's not assembling a car on the factory floor in Detroit as the cars go through the assembly line. This is just the nature of human development, and once the kids and coaches for that matter, administrators for that matter, referees for that matter, come into soccer, that human aspect doesn't change. It's still an organic process, not a mechanical process. So what we have to get our administrators to understand in conjunction with the coaches, so that they can help to impact that big influential group of soccer moms and soccer dads, is that human development, and therefore player development, is something that we can't predict for sure what the outcome is going to be. You cannot stand there and look at a 9-year-old and say, this player will someday be a professional player. There's far too many factors that have to go on from age 9 to perhaps 19 when that person might be ready for professional soccer to be able to determine whether or not that person has all of the experiences as well as all of the characteristics that is needed to become an accomplished professional player, just as one example. So if we get the administrators understanding that the player development process is not one that is a clean process. It's a messy process. It's one where we've got to put them into a variety of different types of games and training environments in order to help them to develop as players, and still there's no absolute guarantee as to how they will come out in the end. If we do a good job of developing the right soccer environment, a healthy and developmental soccer environment, which includes playing for competition, playing for learning how to play your best and striving to win games. That's a part of the process. It's not one is exclusive of the other. It's that right environment that allows them to strive to play their best while also developing and getting more of the administrators to understand their role in this, then they can help the coaches go back and sell it to the other decision makers in a club or a state association and to the parents as well, being the largest influential group in youth soccer. So one of the things that, particularly with Zone 1, that we want to take a look at and get administrators to understand is how do we begin to address the overemphasis on the part of the adults, and it could be coaches, it could be parents, it could be administrators, having this overemphasis, particularly in Zone 1, U6 through U12, as to the outcome of the match. I have this discussion regularly with coaches and sometimes with administrators, sometimes with parents. I get the opportunity to address them about the fact that the outcome of the game, the score of the game, the won-loss record, isn't a clear-cut measurement of the success of a team or the quality of a coach or the quality of the players. So we have all been in games as players and as coaches. We've all witnessed games where one team dominates and still loses. loses on that one counterattack goal type of a situation. So this is also part of the education of the administrators, and the more that they understand that we can some days as a team play our best and still tie the game or lose the game, then they begin to understand a little bit better as to what is the stair-step approach, what's the right environment towards developing players, and that once again it's not always a clear-cut manner. And I've always really enjoyed this quote that you see at the bottom from Jay Miller, who's now the #1 assistant coach with the New England Revolution. Formerly, Jay was our under-20 men's national team coach. He's coached our university games team for the United States. He's been a high school coach, a college coach. Many of you know Jay, and I just love this quote that you see at the bottom from him, and one perhaps to share with a lot of our administrators and coaches. So one of the ways that I get when I have the opportunity to speak to groups of coaches, parents, administrators, combinations thereof, what's the parallel in youth soccer and youth academics from elementary school into middle school and high school? What are those parallels between academic and development and soccer development? You can't expect an 8-year-old to be doing college-level classes. You can't expect an 8-year-old to be playing college-level soccer. That just as your child, moms and dads, goes through progressive stages and builds off of foundations academically, the exact same thing is true in terms of their soccer development. So I see the analogy between club administrators being similar to school administrators and the club director of coaching being similar to the headmaster, to the principal at a school, and I see coaches being, for youth soccer, being similar to teachers in a school, and that what we as youth soccer coaches are doing is we're teaching the game. And then we need the administrators in the club, in the school, if you will, to do their part that helps the learning of the players, the learning of the student athletes to be a good one, to be a healthy one, and to be able to keep the doors open to the club as well, to do that business side of it. So this brings us back once again, because it's somewhat similar, if you will, to the Olympic rings, in that they interlock with one another and that they always influence one another. Those 4 groups of adults that impact youth sport, the referees, the coaches, the administrators, the parents. And we need more of our administrators at the state level, at the club level, recognizing that they need to take an even more active role than what they are already doing in helping the coaches and to help the parents understand a little bit more as to what needs to be going on in that youth soccer environment in order to be able to allow the coaches then to get back to what should be their primary task in a youth soccer club, which is the development of the players. Right now, though, that's largely not possible. A lot of coaches and a lot of clubs are trying to do the primary task of player development, but they're being thwarted, they're being hindered by this environment where parents are upset with the coach, they're upset with the club, they yank their kid out of that team, they yank the kid out of the club, go to the club across town, this constant jumping of players from place to place, which at the younger youth levels is frequently a parent decision, not a player's decision, and they're simply upset because they don't understand well enough what is the process for developing a soccer player. So this brings us back to what I advocate right now with soccer clubs all across the United States, being that their primary task needs to be parent education. Their secondary task is player development. And if they do the parent education piece first, they have a chance at doing player development. And to do the parent education development correctly, the coaches need the administrators to be fully involved with them in that process. Another one of the examples that I talk to administrators about, club leaders about, is, you know, we've gotten into this situation where we're expecting team performance, team mentality, team play from younger and younger and younger players. It just continues to encroach, almost as you see here in the cartoon, to the diaper league. And one of the things that we need to help administrators understand a little bit better, and thereby they can help us with our novice coach development, they can help us with our parent education, and that is children really socially, cognitively are not ready for team sport, group interaction, playing intentionally with others until around age 8 or 9. We can introduce them to the team sport of soccer at a younger age, but they're going to play it as an individual. They're going to play it side by side, individually in the game. They're not going to consciously try to play with teammates in pairs or in groups and that such until they get a little bit older. So it's okay for us to begin to introduce the kids modestly to the team sport of soccer, but we have to get the administrators and have them understand that soccer, like all team sports, is a long-term developmental sport. This is why in professional soccer you see mostly adult players in their 20s and early 30s. You don't see a whole lot of teenagers playing in professional leagues. You certainly don't see any preteens playing in professional leagues. It's a long-term developmental sport, as is every team sport. And so this is another one of the pieces that we need our administrators to understand and help them to help us set the right environments and put the line down as to how young is too young for kids to participate in soccer teams in a formal basis. It could be okay when they're young for them to participate in a soccer introduction type of environment as opposed to a team and a scheduled set of matches and referees and all of the expectations for outcome that comes with that type of a setup. So this is just a joke, but often the jokes help us to get across some good messages that our youth soccer leaders need to understand a little bit more clearly, and we need to, on one end, put a line down as to when are we going to actually start team setups, probably best around age 11 or 12, and prior to that, player development pools, back to the academy type of a setup, ages 10 and younger, and at very young ages, 6 and younger, that it's more of a introductory environment to soccer, to movement, to some of the things that they would be getting in nursery school or kindergarten or first grade in terms of physical education, or a well-rounded general approach to their physical development. And then this cartoon just conveys some of the things that we've done where we've probably, frankly, gone a little too far in some of our stuff of trying to create that right environment. And it's finding that right balance in order to create that right environment for player development. So this one kind of depicts the Silent Saturday, the Silent Sunday type of a thing. And we definitely need to continue to educate all of the adults, team managers, coaches, parents, etc., as to their behavior, the things that they say and do in front of the kids on game day to make that realistic and reasonable. But we also probably don't need to go, quite so far as to, handing out the duct tape to put over people's mouths at the games and requiring total silence at games as well. This is another piece that if our administrators understand a little bit better as to just thinking about the physical recovery time that it takes between hard matches, demanding matches, certainly the physical recovery time that's required after players play in a tournament before they go on to their next event, to having proper peaks and valleys in terms of the psychological demands and the physical demands on the players. And one of the things that is actually hurting the development of the American soccer player is too much travel too soon and at a young age too far. And again, the cartoon takes it to an extreme just in order to get the point across. But it's a piece that we have to take a look at managing more. It's a challenge when you're talking about soccer based across a continent like the United States, and we travel to Alaska, we travel to Hawaii, and the distances are even greater for some of our teams to travel, and we have to take a realistic look as to how does it really help the players, some of this travel, and then when is it too much and it begins to hurt the players and hinder their development, and once again finding that right balance point for each age group. And so as they get older, you know, they're under 19s, yeah, travel away all over the USA. When they're under 10s, then it needs to be much more under control and realistic as to what we're putting them into in terms of the schedule plan and the travel plan. So I put forward regularly to clubs, administrators, coaches, etc., this idea as to a basic decision-making formula. At least it begins to give a club a guide as to how to make decisions, and not enough clubs have an idea as to how are they going to make their decisions that impact the players. Once again, you know, whether it's deciding, you know, what insurance plan to buy for the club, you know, that's a totally different matter. Deciding which uniform supplier to buy from, that's a completely different matter. But these things that impact training sessions and matches and therefore impact the players, then a decision-making formula needs to come into place. And so I'm an advocate that first we look at how does it impact that individual player. Next, how does it impact the team? And I think too often the outcome of the team is placed above the need of the individual players. The next part is, of course, how does it impact the club as a whole? And then finally, family logistics. And that's going to take some real education with administrators and with moms and dads, and perhaps even with a lot of coaches as to, yes, this is the right progression in order of priority for decision-making formula, and then the club board of directors and coaches and so on in the club following this formula and sticking to it as they make the type of decisions in the club that really impact the players. But when we begin to do that, when we begin to get administrators and coaches understanding that, and then them educating the other adult groups that impact youth soccer, we begin to turn it around to a positive environment. And if you've been through any of the U.S. Youth Soccer youth modules, if you've been through any of the National Youth License courses, the E-License course from U.S. Soccer recently, and so on, one of the things that we're advocating a major change in, and have been actually for a little while, is that our environment needs to be a player-centered environment, what's right for the growth and the development of the American soccer player. When we do this, when the coaches and the administrators begin to intentionally work together more in regards to their leadership, we begin to push that soccer boulder back up the hill and get a little bit more direct control over what's going on in our environment for the kids.